the narrative on Africa migration agenda has been narrowly described through the incidences that we see either in Libya, either in Morocco, and in other areas where we see a lot of migrants taking those perilous routes uh, through the northern route and other routes. So, indeed, there is that narrative, but evidence shows us that those that we see on media, those that have become part of this narrative on migration, it's only 20%. Most of the African young men and women are moving or migrating within the continent. That's what we call intra-Africa migration, which is about 80%. So 80% of young men and women and other categories of Africans are moving intra-Africa. So that is the migration. That is the migration narrative that unfortunately has not captured the attention of media or of the commentators about African migration. What we will say is that that 20%, because they are taking perilous route, is what has created the crisis. But number two, we have another complexity in the area of migration because we've got smugglers, we've got syndicates, some people who are smuggling people with the hope that they will take them to places of greener pastures. And that complicates because they are not visible. That is the complexity and the complication that the migration in Africa is facing. And unfortunately, that tends to shape the existing narrative about migration. African Union has come up with various projects, programs, but also policies that supports the notion that migration is a developmental issue, that promotes the notion that migration is an opportunity. One, the existing data shows us that in a number of countries, the remittances that are coming as a result, that are flowing into Africa as a result of the migrants who are working and making a living in other parts of the world, the fraction or the percentage of the remittances is such that it is a significant contribution to the GDP of a number of countries. That is why we believe that migration is an opportunity. But we also believe that the skills, the education that a number of African migrants are contributing to various regions across the globe, um, it's to us, we might call it a brain drain, but we know that it's a brain gain to other regions who are benefiting from the skills from Africa. The point on the data that is specific to climate induced migrants and refugees and IDPs is lacking. So that point came out clearly in this meeting. But also, we recall that another point that was highlighted is recognition that African Union has established 3 migration centers across the continent. One, the Africa Migration Observatory in Rabat. Another one, the Center for the Study and Research in Bamako. The third one is the Continental Operations Center in Khartoum. All these centers are established so that they can generate migration related data. So we believe that with this effort from AU and with this leadership from AU, These migration centers will incorporate migration induced or the climate induced mobility as one of the indicators that will be tracked by these centers and generate data and knowledge products that will support the response of member states. That is so critical, particularly because we want to respond to the issue of migration, but we are also insisting that migration is a developmental issue, and we need to show this through generation of data. We also need to develop migration policies that are evidence based. And therefore, data is important to show us the evidence on migration. But the third one, as we indicated earlier on, there's a complexity and complication that is created by the syndicates and transnational criminal activities. And unless we have data to be able to show that, the law enforcement agencies might not be able to assist us to respond to the scourge of human trafficking, which unfortunately has infiltrated migration.